Hey guys, welcome to my video series. In this video, I will explain, with the use of examples, how to use the select statement. In particular, I will look at only the select from. The table that I will be using has the following structure. The name of the table is TBL actors, and it has the fields actor ID, actor name, actor surname, the date of birth, the age, cell number is local, which is yes or no, and the annual earnings, which is a currency. The data or the records in the table is as follows. There are 4 records in total, and it has been populated with some data, which we will query in this video. The select statement is used for display purposes. Whenever we want to display information inside a table in a database, we will make use of the select statement. It comprises of 2 parts. The first part is compulsory, which is where my focus will be in this video, which is the select from. And then in subsequent videos, we will look at those parts that are optional. As I indicated, the compulsory part is made up of only select from, and it can be used in a couple of variations. We will look at how to use the select statement to display specific fields in our table. We will also look at how we can display all the fields. We will try to understand what an alias is, how we can perform calculations, and work with a couple of predefined functions. So let's go. Here is the select statement. And as I indicated, it's used to display information. This is our table structure, and these are all our different fields that we have in our table. So if you want to display specific columns, it's fairly straightforward. We use the word select. In a previous video, I would have indicated to you that SQL is not case sensitive, so we can use upper or lowercase select, and then we specify the column names. In this case, if I want to display just the name, the actor name, and the actor surname, I would replace this with actor name, exactly as it is with no spaces, and actor surname. So I would say select actor name, comma, actor surname from the table that we are using is called TBL actors. And that would then give us this output of only the name and the surname for all the records that are in my table, TBL actors. But what if I wanted to display all the information, not just specific fields? To display all the fields, I want to display all the fields that are in my table. We use the star. So we say select star, which means give me all the fields, and you then specify the table name. We can look at some examples which will better illustrate this. In this example, let's display all. All, remember, that was the star. Display means select. So let's display all the fields for all the records in TBL actors. And the way we would go about doing that is select, as I indicated, star from TBL actors, and this is the output that you would obtain after executing that select statement. Let's look at example 2. In this example, we want to display only the name, the surname, and the age of all the actors. So you will see just those 3 fields are wanting to be displayed. To do that, we're not going to use the star. We will then say select, and we will specify the name of the field. The name of the field is actor name, comma, actor surname, comma, age from the table name. And this will then give us the output as shown in this figure. In example 3, we want to display the name, the contact numbers of all the actors. So it's just two fields, the name and the contact number, which is stored in the table in the field cell number. Pay very careful attention to this field because you will notice that this field contains a space. All the other fields did not have spaces in their names, so we treat this a little different. If we want to display just specific fields, we will say select actor name, which is what we want, and then the cell number. Because of the space, we then enclose that field between square brackets. This remains the same from the table name. So whenever you have a field that has a space in it, always remember to enclose it in square brackets. From my experience, I've found it's better not to have spaces since you can run into some difficulties. So rather, calling this cell number without a space would make things easier when you're writing your select statements. Example 4, display the top 2 names and contact numbers of all the actors. So this is very similar to the previous example that gave us the one that requested the name and contact number. So we know how to write the select statement, but I'm only interested in the top 2. How do I display only the top 2? That's quite straightforward. We make use of the word top and we specify the number that we want. In this case, it's 2, and everything else remained the same as in the previous example. Select top 2, actor name, comma, cell number in square brackets from table name. And notice there was no comma after top 2. It's just written select top 2, and thereafter you continue specifying the columns that you want. If you wanted all the columns, you would have said select top 2 star from TBL actors. Let's look at the next example. In the next example, we are looking at aliases. An alias is used to rename a column, or a field heading. So by default, whenever we display information in our table, the field names that you used when you created the table will be the field names that are displayed as headings when you display information using your select. You can rename these columns making use of something called an alias. Let's look at how that is done. So I want to display the name, surname, and age of all the actors. That's straightforward based on what we've just covered. But I want to make use of aliases. In other words, I want to rename the column. I don't want it to be actor name. I want it to be name. And I want this to be surname as an example. So here we state select the field, and whenever we use the reserved word as, it means we are making use of an alias. So we are redefining the column heading, and here now the column heading is going to be called name, and I'm using another alias on my second field, which is going to be called surname. Notice with the third field, I've chosen not to make use of an alias. In the next example, display the name and the contact numbers of all actors using aliases. Again, we would then say select actor name as, in this case, I wanted my heading to be a little different. So I'm saying name of actor. And you'll notice that the alias has spaces. And when we have spaces, like with the field name, we enclosed it in square brackets. So here as well, I will enclose my alias because of the spaces in those square brackets. And my alias for the field cell number is just cell phone, no spaces. Therefore, there's no need to make use of those square brackets. So this is how you would go about using aliases in these two examples. Let's look at a third example. I want to display the name, surname, and age. Straightforward. Name, surname, and age, making use of aliases. And it's very similar to the previous examples. That's my field, actor name. Here is my alias name, my field, actor surname. Here's my alias, and then that is my the alias surname. And with age, I've chosen not to have any alias. And then we have our from the table name. We also have something called calculated fields, where we can perform calculations. This allows us to perform calculations when we want to display information in a table. And we can return a new column based on the calculation that is made. Let's look at how that is done. So I want to display the actor's name. That's simple. The actor's surname, very easy. We've been doing many examples with that. But I want to know the actor's age in 10 years' time. Well, we know there's a field called age, and we've got all the ages. But what will the age be in 10 years' time? So if somebody was 13, in 10 years' time, they would be 23. And if somebody was 25, in 10 years' time, they would be 35. So to perform a calculation of that nature, we would then say select actor name, comma, actor surname, and this is the calculation where we're taking the column age, we're adding 10 to it, and that will return this column that gives us the new set of values with the current age plus 10 added to it. And I can hear you probably saying we should have used an alias to get a better name. And yes, I do agree the heading could have been improved upon through the use of an alias. And in this example, that's exactly what we do. We then want to get an alias, and this is where the alias comes in exactly the same way. And here is our calculation. It's worth noting that although a new column is created, these new values are not written back into the table. They're just a column that's created based on information that exists in the table. And the new information is not stored back into the table. Let's now look at some additional functions. There are many different types of functions that you can use. I'm just going to focus on two of them, which is round, the round and the format. The format, in this case, I want to display the actor's name, the monthly earnings, and the annual earnings. Well, there is a field called annual earnings, so that's straightforward to get. And monthly earnings will then be a calculated field, whereby we will take the annual earnings and divide by 12. So we would get something like this. Select actor name, comma, annual earnings divided by 12, comma, and then the field annual earnings from TBL actors. But how, and if I had to display the information, this is my calculated field, And these are my new values after taking that value and dividing it by 12. There's a couple of things that I'd like here. Well, firstly, because these are money values, I'd like the R sign. And secondly, I don't want so many of those decimal points. I'd like it to be displayed in the same way in that currency format. To do something like that, we make use of the format function. So to use format, it has two parameters. The first parameter is the value that you are formatting. In this case, I'm formatting a calculation. So this is my calculation that is being formatted. It could be a variable that could also exist. However, I'm choosing to format a calculation. And the second parameter is what I'm formatting it to. So between double quotes, I state currency so that the annual earnings divided by 12, which then gives me the monthly earning, is given in a currency format. And by doing that, you will then see that I now have my values in a much more presentable way. It has the R sign and it is formatted to 2 decimal places. We could have again used an alias and changed the column heading using as. And you'll notice everything else still remains the same in terms of the actor name and the annual earnings, which just separate using commas. In the next example, we show how to use the round function. Here, I want to display the actor name, the age divided by 3. So again, that is a calculation. I have the age, I need to take that and divide it by 3. And the answer, I want it to 1 decimal point. So you can see these are the calculations of the ages divided by 3, and it is all formatted to 1 decimal point. And you will also notice that there is an alias in this case. How would we write that? Again, select actor name, and then we use the function round. Round also has 2 parameters. The first parameter is what you are rounding off. In this case, that's my calculation. It could also be a variable. And I'm rounding it off to 1 decimal place. So the second parameter specifies the number of decimal places that you are using. And here's my alias between square brackets because of the spaces. I select that information from TBL actors, and this is the output that you will obtain. Let's look at how we would work with dates. Again, there are many different functions that are predefined that allows us to work with a date. We can use the function date, and this gives us the current date. We can also get the day out of a date format. We can extract just the month, or we could extract the year using these 3 functions. Let's look at some examples. Display the actor's name, simple, date of birth. Remember, DOB was a field in our table. Here, I want the day from the date of birth. So we will make use of the day function, and I want the current date. So we say select the actor name and DOB. This is a field in our table that exists. Here, I'm making use of the day function. So I'm getting the day from the date of birth. I'm using an alias. And then I'm using date, which gives me the current date. And I've also used an alias. Take note that the alias, it's not case sensitive. Writing the word as, whether it's caps or whether we use small letters, it doesn't make any difference. And if I had to display that, This is the field, the DOB field, and the calculated fields, you will notice that these are the days that are being extracted and displayed. And because I said I wanted the current date is appearing for each record. Display the actor's name, date of birth, and here I'm looking for the month from the date of birth and the year from the date of birth. And again, it's used in the same way where I use the month function and the year function to extract those values from the date of births. And you will see the month. So it's 1, 8, 3, and 11, those values. And then the year, which is extracted in that column. So that is how you would go about making use of dates. Let's look at how this can be implemented in Delphi. If I open up my Delphi, I've already got a program that has been written. The focus here is not for you to understand how the connections work connecting to the database. That is explained in another video. But to understand how you will be tested by writing SQLs in your exams or test. So how will the question be asked? Well, in this case, I was testing something, so I included some statement there, but that would not be there. In your test script, you would be told, write a SQL statement to display all the information in the actor table. And all of this information would have been given to you. Connections would already have been set to this grid to automatically display the information. All that you would then need to do between the query SQL add statement, you would then go and type select. Well, in this case, I want to display all the information from TBL actors. And you will then be marked on this one particular statement should it be dealing with your SQL queries. If the test is dealing with SQL queries in your final paper, this is the only line that you will be marked on. I've already set up some already pre-existing queries that I have done where I wanted to display all the fields. I've just looked at how that would be done. If you wanted to look at the format statement in those examples we covered, it's in exactly the same way. In fact, all that I did was copied and pasted from the PowerPoint presentation into these queries, and they worked. The display that I had explained in the PowerPoint is what you are going to see in Delphi. A quick run, and if I then click on displaying all the fields, this is what you would get. I display some of the fields. It is actor, a name of actor, and the cell phone number. That's what you would get. If I'm using the format, here's my expression. And if I scroll towards the end, there was the annual earnings. You will recall that example. A calculated field, there's the age in 10 years' time. Making use of round, that was the age divided by 3, and then working with dates. I hope this video gives you a good understanding of how you would go about using the select from, which is your compulsory part in a select statement. In subsequent videos, we will then look at how you would go about extending the select statement and introducing the where, which includes conditions, and to also do sorting and grouping. Until then, thank you very much. Bye.